All right, this is King Bucho. Welcome to BDA Boxing, the Boxing Debate Arena. Shout out to everyone in the chat. John, the Quacks, the Dark Hado, Ralph, Warp Speed. Who else are we having here? Rapax Trucking Company and Cloud. Guys, welcome to the show. All right, so today we're going to be talking about who's going to be the next boxing superstar. And by superstar, we mean somebody that's going to actually bring something to a sport, that's going to attract fans, that might even transcend the sport at some point, that might become the so-called face of boxing. So this is what we're going to be searching for that name, that guy, that boxer. Who will it be? PDA, if you are ready, you can jump on. But yeah, that's going to be pretty much what we're going to be talking about because, after Canelo, he's the face of boxing. There's nobody else right now. Now, I'm pretty sure there's going to be somebody. But who will that be? So that's going to be the discussion. Definitely not Terence Crawford. I mean, the guy's 38 years old. They're talking about Terence Crawford fighting Boots Ennis. This big fight, and I see that Eddie Hearn's really pushing for that fight. But what's going to happen? So because Eddie Hearn was saying that Boots Ennis was going to fight Virgil Ortiz, so they wanted the Virgil Ortiz fight. But now it appears like he's really pushing that Crawford fight. I wouldn't be surprised if Boots Ennis doesn't fight anybody, any big names at 154, and just tries to get that Crawford fight right away. What do you guys think? I think that's what Eddie Hearn wants. Why risk Boots Ennis losing against one of these guys at 154 when you can just go straight to that Crawford fight, that Crawford mega fight? The Quack says Crawford should rematch Canelo, in my opinion. I agree as well. I think they should be a rematch. Yeah, I think Canelo lost, but it wasn't a whooping, as they say. Maybe Canelo can make some changes. Maybe not. If he loses again, he loses again. But I think he deserves a rematch. But again, the media, they trying to make you believe that it was a completely one-sided fight. That there's no point in having a second one. It's like we've seen throughout history trilogies where one guy gets knocked out in one of those fights, like completely get knocked out, and then he comes back in the rematch. So I think it should be a rematch, but if there isn't a rematch, then what's next for Crawford? That's the question. And Boots Ennis, listen, if Boots Ennis beats Crawford, the point of this show is to try and find the next superstar. That could be a big step for Boots Ennis, obviously, defeating a guy like Crawford. But we'll see. Listen, maybe we're getting ahead of ourselves here. Let's see what people are saying in the chat. Hold on. African Engineer says Boots will become the next face of boxing when he brutally knocks out Virgil Ortiz. If he knocks out Virgil Ortiz, then yeah, of course, he's one step closer to becoming the face of boxing. The problem with Boots Ennis is that he hasn't really fought anybody. He had those. I still remember those fights against Karen. He looked like shit in those fights. Then he destroyed Stanionis, who looked much smaller. And then Boots Ennis moves up in weight. Well, my sound is all fucked up. I can hear myself. So then Boots Ennis moves up in weight because he can't even make welterweight. Okay, fine. Now you're moving up because you're too big for the division, for the welterweight division. Have you fought anybody at 154? No, he just fought for this guy Lima. Well, now people are criticizing. I read some of the comments on the internet, and people are saying that this was an embarrassment. This guy Lima shouldn't have been in the ring with Boots Ennis. So, listen, we gotta calm down here when it comes to Boots Ennis. Now he has a lot of fights that can propel him to superstardom, but he has to win those fights. Ralph says Ennis doesn't have the charisma to be a star. That's interesting. We're gonna actually, I think BDA wrote some like the criteria for what constitutes a boxing superstar. So we're gonna be going through those, and I think charisma is one of those. I mean, I guess it should be. You need to be charismatic. And if you're not charismatic, you should at least be destroying your opponents inside the ring. But Ennis, listen, sometimes he struggles, like against Karen. Like you're saying, the charisma is not there. I'm Green says Ennis needs better competition. Of course, absolutely.
In regards to the Lima fight, yeah, it was a waste of time, especially particularly egregious when you consider that this past month has been a wasteland for boxing. But I don't mind tune-ups as long as we get the big fight right away afterwards. Because if it's a tune-up, especially one that ends in the first round, there's no need for a long turnaround. I mean, we shouldn't be seeing Ennis staying idly by for the next 5 months. 3 months. And let's make a fight. I don't know. It seems like they might make a big fight, early 2026. So I'm okay with tune-ups as long as we get a big fight right away within the next 3 months. And now you mentioned about what makes a star. That's the thing, though. We are now entering a redistribution process, right, with boxing, because in a transitional period, in other words, because Canelo is 35. He's got 2 fights left with the Sheik, and who knows what happens after that. Crawford, like you said, he's not a star. Even if he was, I don't know if he can stay out of trouble. He seems to get into, I don't know if he's got a victim mentality or something. Maybe that attracts trouble, or I don't know what it is, but he's already 38 on top of that. So I don't see him being the star. Anthony Joshua, he was the other face of boxing, but I like Canelo. He's been in a bit of a hibernation period. After the Daniel Dubois fight, who knows what's next for him as well. Like I said, same thing with Canelo. We don't know what's next for them after these losses. But Joshua is a little bit more pronounced because, like I said, it's been a year? Well, that was in September or October, Bucha, when Joshua lost to Dubois.
Shit, I don't remember.
Anyway, whatever. Let's put it in as a year, right? Let's say it's a year.
Yeah, it's a year.
Who's next? That's the big question. And incidentally, last week, Steve Kim penned an article where Bruce Trampler, is that Trampler or Templar? No, it's Trampler, I think. The matchmaker for Top Rank. Now, this dude has been around, according to Steve Kim. Trampler's been around for the De La Hoya Mayweather era. So and Cotto, you have to assume too. I don't know why they didn't mention Cotto, because Cotto also had a very good rise. Even though he wasn't a star, he wasn't the star of boxing, he wasn't the face of boxing. He needed an A side or a solid B side to have a little bit of success in terms of viewership, pay-per-view. But the Top Rank at 90s and 2000s, these last 20 years, 25 years, 30 years, they were very good. They were the best when it came to developing stars. So this Bruce Trampler, if he knows a little something about it, he knows a little something about it, because this is the guy to go to. And he read Steve Kim's previous article, in which he was talking about, well, who's next? Who's going to be the next star? And Trampler weighed in and said that there's a whole bunch of problems. It's not just one thing that's holding back boxing, and it's a whole bunch of them. And he said that a lot of these stars are not made; they're born, and that's the thing we got to get cast aside or get to first before anything else. A lot of people say, "Well, okay, you got to be entertaining to be a star, right? Like you got to score knockouts." That's not always the case, because Lomachenko, they did try to push him for a while. He wasn't a knockout machine, but he was stopping a lot of guys. He was flashy. He had the skill level to paint him to be painted as a virtuoso, a wizard in there, which is what they tried to do with Shakur Stevenson too in the last couple of years. That didn't work as well, but they tried that with Lomachenko, and Lomachenko, contrary to Shakur Stevenson, was entertaining, and he just didn't click. Now, you've often heard throughout the 80s and 90s, we often heard people say, they want a white guy on top. They want a white guy on top. Boxing is racist, blah, blah, blah. Well, here you had a white guy who fought in an entertaining style, who had the machine behind him for a little while, trying to push him into the mainstream, and he never caught on. So that right there, by the way, just disproves the whole thing of boxing is racist. They tried pushing the guy and he didn't catch, and he's a white guy. So it just seems like boxing is, what's that?
Like Klitschko.
Klitschko was.
Klitschko was boring. I mean, if you're boring, you're boring. This is what people don't understand. I didn't, I didn't see any of these LDBC guys supporting Klitschko's style, boring style, right? Hey, that's boxing. Clinching you can clinch. It's legal. It's part of the sport. Right. It's part of the what do you call it? Like,
sweet science.
Yeah, it's part of the sweet science, basically. You can clinch. You can't clinch. It's illegal to clinch. Klitschko did it so many times that he was so fucking boring that HBO didn't want him anymore. But yeah, again, I didn't see rooting for that guy. Oh, look at his style, beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point about the hypocrisy of it all. But I actually got into a debate with somebody once a long time ago. That was when Klitschko was still active, and I said the guy's boring, and somebody was like, "No, he's not boring." I said, "Well, how do you counter that? Like, what's your counter argument?" He goes, "Look at all the people that pack in the arenas to watch him."
Oh,
I'm thinking, wait a minute. When you're using the German audience, these people are outliers. They're they lost the war. There was a whole bunch of raping going on in there. So I mean, they're not in the right place mentally, generation wise, right?
They're pretentious.
The other thing is
German people. They're pretentious with the fiddles, with the fucking
with the fiddles,
classical music,
the Mr. Opera,
for the opera, I'm pretty sure it's some sort of like, bourgeois type of fucking event for the people over there in Germany. It's not for the.
It looked like it.
They hijacked the whole thing. Absolutely.
But anyway, the other thing, the other counter argument was, well, look at his record. He's got a whole bunch of stoppages. Stoppages don't always equal knockouts. I mean, when you say knockout, you think, whoa, a guy getting punched and going down, and then that's it. He's out the 10 count. No, this guy would clinch. He was bigger than most of his opponents, so he would just clinch his way. I mean, he had skills. Don't get me wrong, and that's what made it so much more frustrating. That you knew the guy could fight clean, but since he'd been stopped twice or not 3 times before that. By the mid 2000s, he was traumatized about that and didn't want to get stopped again. So he said, "Hey, if I can clinch and lean on these guys and tire them out, all the better." So that's the other thing about when people say a white guy would make any boxing real quick. Nah, but it's just it takes a different bunch of factors together to make a star, and just stopping guys, it's not enough.
Right. That's what we're going to be talking about. There's multiple factors that come into play here. But Ruski. Well, I can't even pronounce his name. He says, well, Loma was Ukrainian, not American. Those East Europeans are hard to sell to the American market. That's true, though. It's not like, there's a difference between white American and somebody from Eastern Europe, right? They're harder to sell, especially if they don't speak English. But Golovkin was doing a pretty good job. Actually, he did a pretty good job. Because he was putting it all in the ring. He was giving us those big drama shows. He was knocking people out, and he was fighting 3 times a year. 3 times a year.
And there was a payoff. By 2015, he was knocking people out left and right, and there was a payoff near the end, which was, hey, let's match him up with Canelo. Those 2 guys are the best. They got to fight each other now to finally determine who is the best. So there has to be. That's the other thing. There has to be a line of opponents, of interesting, appealing opponents. It can't just be, well, this guy's knocking everybody out, because then it gets boring, right? It's like the same thing with Mike Tyson. He was knocking everybody out for a short period of time, and then you were thinking, well, who's next?
Right.
That can also lead to a lack of excitement.
Yeah, you need a good opponent at the end of the road. Yeah, shout out to Rappa Trucking Company. He says, hold on. Gee, I can see. I like Klitschko. He had a high knockout ratio.
No, come on. He's taking that, like they say in England, he's taking the piss out of me.
Huh? No, but I think like they say in England, he did have a high knockout ratio, I think. But the point is, he tired his opponents out. Remember, this is a heavyweight division. He was fighting a lot of fatties, right? They get tired pretty quickly. or at some point, not pretty. Mid to late rounds, they get tired. And Klitschko did end up stopping a lot of these guys, but everything before the knockout was boring, right? It was jab, clinch, jab, clinch, and then all of a sudden, straight right hand, the guy falls down, knockout, right? This wasn't
that's what he was saying. That's what Rapax was saying, because I mentioned that there was a lot of clinching before the stoppages. So, like they say in England, he was just taking the piss out of us. But shout out to Rapax Trucking Company, 10-4. Okay. John Lucky's God says Joe Smith Jr. was a white American with knockout power, very entertaining. Knocked out Bernard Hopkins out of the ring, and he was never promoted. If anything, white boxers are under promoted. I agree. And that's the other thing we're going to talk about later on here, as it pertains to what Bruce Trampler was saying about the difficulties now in creating a star in the current boxing environment. Or what did somebody say in the last show? The habitat. There was who used the word habitat or ecosystem.
I was reading ecosystem. It was somebody from the Zone that was talking about the ring pass. Remember that?
Right. Yeah, the ecosystem. Today's ecosystem. What the fuck?
Yeah, fan-centric ecosystem. Fan-centric ecosystem.
But it's interesting. Here's the thing that Bruce Trampler had to say about creating a star and the circumstances surrounding it and all the various factors. He says, Marciano had it. Rocky Marciano, that is. So he succeeded where title holders Patterson and Liston didn't. Then came Clay, a.k.a. Muhammad Ali, and at times in succeeding decades, so did Tyson and Sugar Ray Leonard. In 1976, he says, Sugar Ray Leonard had it, but no matter what you did, you couldn't create Howard Davis into a superstar. And that's true. There's some guys that've got it all. They got the accolades, they got the skill. Hell, they might even be entertaining. But for some reason, they just don't stick with the crowd. It's interesting because usually they used to say that you had to beat one guy, the superstar, to be the superstar. Sometimes that's not how it works. Leonard never beat any superstar. He never took the torch away from somebody, as people like to claim. That they always say, well, the torch has to be passed. Leonard never did that. He created his own. He came out of the Olympics, didn't even really know if he wanted to be a professional fighter. Finally, he decided he would be. He hired a lawyer. His name escapes him right now, but a very famous guy that ended up becoming his sort of promoter or manager, as you would say, half of half. And they would be freelancers. And, Ray Leonard ended up fighting Wilfred Benitez, and that's when he won his first belt at the welterweight. Benitez wasn't a superstar. He was a Puerto Rican. I don't think he even spoke English. So you can see how it is. People sometimes they get stuck in that worm's eye view of this is the way it's done. Exactly. People get stuck on that sometimes. No, sometimes you don't have to need the passing of the torch. So what I'm saying is, in today's environment, if there's going to be a next star coming out, it's possible that he might arise without the whole passing of the torch thing.
Yeah. Yeah, no, and as I was talking before, I was talking about Golovkin. Yeah, Golovkin, he was becoming a name. I wouldn't say a star. I mean, a star within boxing, obviously, right? Not the face of boxing. He was becoming popular, and it's because he was knocking everybody out, and he was fighting 3 times a year. So we weren't forgetting about him. He was constantly there every fucking year. And even though he never beat anybody, like a passing of the torch type of thing, he never had that fight. But still, he was knocking everybody out. So you got to be exciting, first of all. First and foremost, you got to be fucking exciting. You can't, this is the problem that Mayweather created. He created this idea that you can be boring and you can be a superstar. Only he pulled it off because of multiple factors. Again, I always say the stars aligned for Floyd Mayweather. The stars aligned. With Shakur Stevenson and Devin Haney, the stars are not aligning. They cannot be fighting in a boring ass fucking style and expect to become a sort of a Floyd Mayweather, an attraction. No, you can't. You can't.
Well, that's the other thing, Bucho, is that Mayweather wasn't exactly boring coming into the De La Hoya fight. Just to remind people who might not have been around at the time, Mayweather came out of the 1996 Olympics, medaled with a bronze. He had a bronze medal. And, De La Hoya was already at the face of boxing by then. Tyson was on the comeback trail. Holyfield was still around. So even Roy Jones was already well established by then with HBO, even though he wasn't a draw or the biggest draw. But, Mayweather had to take a backseat to all those guys. And he had to labor intensively through the 130-pound ranks, 135, really more or less skip 140, even though he had about, 2-3 fights there before finally moving to welterweight in the mid-2000s. And then in 2007, damn near 11 years after he turned pro, he got the De La Hoya fight after much haranguing and finally was able to parlay that into stardom. But again, he wasn't necessarily boring by then. He would have some less than stellar fights or performances, but for every less than stellar performance, he would manage to score knockouts, stoppage victories in between. So there was that, like you said, the stars aligned because he's undefeated. He's got the face of boxing in Oscar De La Hoya as a dance partner, and people who didn't know who Mayweather was, they looked at him, they go, "Oh, he's undefeated," and then they read about him and they go, in the press releases and all that, they would describe him as a virtuoso, the next Ali, blah blah blah. So it's like, whoa, De La Hoya is fighting that guy. Oh, I'm interested. And in 2007, again, this was the peak of reality TV. In terms of that, it hadn't really lost its novelty too much. And that's when HBO came out with the 24/7 series, which was revolutionary at the time for boxing. And, I think some people claim that in large part also helped raise Mayweather's appeal, or not necessarily appeal, but the fact that, he's the knowledge that he existed towards the mainstream. So like you said, stars aligned, a lot of context in there.
Yeah, what you mentioned about Mayweather. So he wasn't that boring before at 130, 135, 140. And before the De La Hoya fight, and then he beats De La Hoya, so he becomes popular, right? Finally, more popular because he was kind of popular, but I'm saying he became a superstar after he beat Oscar De La Hoya, and then he started to change his style, fight more cautiously, fight in a boring way. But see, here's the thing: Haney or Shakur are not in that. They haven't done that, right? They haven't beaten defeated an Oscar De La Hoya type of boxer. So and from the get-go, they're fighting in a boring ass fucking style. So like they're not doing. You can't compare these guys to Mayweather. They're on a different road.
Mm-hmm. Well, you know what, Bucho, I've thought for a while now that if Shakur Stevenson versus Tank Davis would have happened, and if it still could happen before Tank Davis takes a loss, because I think if anyone's going to take a loss, it's probably Tank Davis before Shakur Stevenson. But I think that the winner of that fight has stood a good chance of transcending into the mainstream, sort of like Leonard did with Benitez, where neither guy were really stars, but as soon as Leonard won that one, and by the way, he stopped Benitez. So it would take. I mean, okay, so I'm not just saying that a win is enough, but I think it would help. The problem with Shakur Stevenson, like you said, is because now we're talking about the styles and all that. He's not exciting. I keep telling people that what you saw against William Cepeda and against Hartunonian, that's the best we're going to get from Shakur Stevenson in terms of entertainment. The guy is not a big puncher. I don't think he really cares to take the risk to really stay in there and swing for the fences, which is, you need to punch with some moxie. But even then, that's the other problem is whether he wants to or not, he doesn't have the punching power to do so. So he's going to be a lot like a Winky Wright type of fighter who, he's skilled defensively, very difficult to hit. But most of the rounds are going to look exactly the same from round 5 to 6 to 7 to 8. You can, after a fight, you can watch any round and it's all, more or less the same as each one, take your pick. So that type of mundane, it's mundane is what I'm saying. It's uneventful. And that's what creates more or less boring fights. The average boxing fan or a casual fan looks at that and they go, okay, nothing's happening. They see a guy landing shots and making his opponent miss, but nothing's happening. There's no drama. There's no change. There's no ebb and flow. That's what boxing fans, in my experience, and I'm talking from my own experience as well, from what I like to see, that's what we enjoy watching. So you have to bring that to the table. You can't just be a boring fighter. I mean, I know we say it enough, and I know it sounds obvious, but so many people, like you said, think that no, Mayweather was boring, and he became a star. Like we said earlier, a bunch of factors and stars aligned for him, for him to be able to walk that path.
The opposition as well. He fought De La Hoya. He fought Miguel Cotto. Cotto had his fan base. There was this
Mosley.
He was chasing Mosley, but he was chasing that Pacquiao fight. So everybody was always, they were following both guys, Pacquiao's and Mayweather's career. We're following them. Eventually, they're gonna fight. So let's watch their fights. Maybe this is gonna be the last fight before they fight each other. Also, Mayweather fought a bunch of Mexicans, Hispanics. That really helped his career as well.
Speaking of that, Pacquiao? Because we don't talk. We most of the time we talk about Mayweather's rise to fame, but Pacquiao's rise to fame as a mainstream attraction. It took a bit of a similar path, but also unique in its own way because he won his first title in 1998, right? And it was in Thailand against the lineal champion in that division. 1998, I didn't know who Pacquiao was. I only learned of Pacquiao in 2001 when he fought Leduaba.
Wow.
So it was 3 years. Again, it was, who the fuck is, Asia? We didn't, again, people got to remember, there's no YouTube back then. There was
only saw his name in the fucking Ring magazine rankings there at the fucking bottom.
Yeah.
Of the division. Yeah.
And so he ended up actually creating a cult status for himself in the lower weight divisions by winning the 120. What was it? He won the 115 championship against that Thai guy, right? I think it was 115. Then he won the 122-pound championship against Leduaba. I mean, he was considered the man when he beat Leduaba. Then at 126, he beats Barrera. And think about what he did in the featherweight division. He beat Morales, Barrera, and Marquez, the three best featherweights of that era.
Well, no, the Marquez fight was a draw. That was a draw.
Okay, yeah, you're right. Well, yeah, you're right. Okay, so let's notch it to featherweight, super featherweight. When he fought Morales, Barrera, and Marquez. Okay, he lost to Morales, but in the long run, he ended up beating all of them. Whether it was close decision, stoppage, whatever, he ended up beating 3 of them. Yeah. So Mexicans are hardcore boxing fans. So now they know, this guy, not only is he a force to be reckoned with, but he's entertaining to watch. We don't care if he's beating up Mexicans. He's entertaining to watch. It adds a level of excitement to the whole proceedings. Then by the time Pacquiao got done with super featherweight and won that one strap at lightweight against Diaz. Yeah, he was already a Hall of Famer. Everything he did afterwards, it was just icing on the cake. Mm-hmm. But he wasn't mainstream famous. I remember I talked to a Filipino guy here in 2006. I said, hey, have you ever heard of Manny Pacquiao? I just wanted to see if Filipinos knew. But he was Filipino-Canadian. So he's like, oh yeah, I heard. Like I think he's my cousins were talking about him or something. So you see, word was spreading around outside of the Philippines within the Filipino community. And once Pacquiao beat De La Hoya, that's it.
That's it.
The legend took on, and he became a modern day Roberto Duran. So that was a bit of a different path, but also because what he was able to do was he beat a much bigger man. And this was an actually bigger man. It wasn't like they're the same, like they tried to do with Crawford and Canelo a couple of weeks back. This was, he surmounted the big odds.
I mean, you can see the size difference between Pacquiao and De La Hoya. And say what you want about De La Hoya. I mean,
absolutely,
his prime. I'm talking about the size difference was pretty evident. By the way, guys, please hit the like button if you're enjoying this show. Also, if you just got here, we're talking about who's going to be the next boxing superstar and what makes a boxing superstar. What's the criteria? So that's why we're talking about Pacquiao, because we're trying to figure out what made Pacquiao a superstar.
Yeah. So yeah, like we were saying, you need to be, like Bucho said, right off the bat, you need to be entertaining, and by entertaining, we don't necessarily mean knockouts, but put on compelling fights, something that attracts the eye. That's why I say sometimes a pure boxer can potentially be a superstar, like we saw with Mayweather, but he needs to have that flash to him. He needs to have that type of speed that dazzles and dazzles the crowd. Otherwise, people just get bored, right? Knockouts, like we said, always helps. Finding good opposition, that's what really sells. I mean, like Bucho said earlier, we were talking about Mayweather-Pacquiao, the fact that they both had that bullet in their chamber, the fact that they could always fight each other and create a mega event, but they tried to milk it for as much as they could. But you remember that when in the early 2010s periods, between 2010 and 2015, when they were fighting each other, like Mayweather, for example, he did good numbers against Mosley, but then he fought Robert Guerrero in 2013. You look at those numbers, they didn't do so well. Same thing in the Maidana fight.
Even though there was 800,000, remember that against Guerrero? I never believed that shit. That was right. And then you look at Pacquiao. His fights with Bradley didn't do all that well on pay-per-view. Same thing with the Chris Algieri fight or the Brandon Rios fight. So people, the boxing fan and the average, the casual fan, they were paying and dictating with their pockets. They would pay money to watch Mayweather against Mosley or against Cotto, but they would not pay to watch him fight Maidana. Same thing with Pacquiao. So eventually these guys realized, hey, shit, we better fight each other. And that's what they did. And then, so Tank Davis is the reason why he never transcended the mainstream or hasn't transcended the mainstream, because he's fighting people that nobody gives a shit about. Nobody really wants. I mean, the fact that the Hector Luis Garcia fights is at all 65,000 pay-per-view buys. And that's why now he's fighting Jake Paul, because he thinks that might be able to not only get him paid, but it might be like a defibrillator to his heart. It might jumpstart his career back to where it should have been if he'd been under a competent promoter. And that's the other thing, though. That's the other thing. You know, when we do the boxing review cards or score, the boxing grading at the end of the year, where we look at boxers, what they did throughout the year, and we give them a score, that also depends on who you're associated with. If you have a promoter that's guiding you and you get a good support system, that always helps. So if you want to be a star, no shit, you need a proper support system. But if you're stuck with people that don't know what they're doing and they're putting you on pay-per-view against subpar opposition, you're going to stagnate. You're fighting once a year, once every 1.5 years. That doesn't help.
Well, that's a big point that Steve Kim and Bruce Trampler also talked about in that article. That, yeah, man, the TV dates. In fact, it brings me to the next thing, which I mentioned last episode. Shakur Stevenson. That's the guy that a lot of people have been trying to push. They took the Lomachenko route with him, by the way, on ESPN. They really try to hype him up, and it's a virtuoso. Look at his stats. Look at his stats. One of the least hit guys in boxing, blah, blah. And it didn't work. And finally, they siphoned him off to Top Rank. And Shakur Stevenson fits two criteria that Trampler talks about. The lack of activity, but also the spoiled baby factor. A lot of these guys are spoiled brats. They want to get paid a lot of money, even though they don't draw crowds. But the problem too is, like I said, the lack of activity. Let's look at Shakur Stevenson. He's 28 years old already. He's in his prime. His prime usually primes end at 31. That's when fighters peak. So he's already 28 years old. You know, time flies by nowadays. In 4 years, he's going to be 32. All right. So who knows if he's still going to be around by then? He's got 24 fights. He's 20. Think about that. 28 years old. He's got 24 fights. So there's been times where he's been fighting about once a year. I mean, I'm looking at his schedule right now. Post-COVID, for example, Jeremiah Nakatila and Jermel Herring in 2021. He had 2 fights in 2022, 2 fights in 2023, 1 fight in 2024. It's one fight in 2024. And so far, at least this year, it hasn't been that bad. He had two. So that's the big activity rate nowadays for guys. Teofimo Lopez, a guy who had better prospects of becoming a star than Shakur Stevenson, mainly because he can crack and he's got a flashier style. Post COVID, let's take a look at his record. He fought Lomachenko in 2020. Okay, that's during peak pandemic. No shame there. Once against George Kambosos, and again, that inactivity was because of his own doing. It was his own fault. Then Top Rank welcomes him back with open arms. Let's start again. He fights 2 times in 2022, once in 2023, twice in 2024, which again, if you can even remember who he fought last year, I'm pretty sure there's a lot of guys out there, hardcore boxing fans might not even remember. And so far, he's fought once. He had a chance to fight Devin Haney, and he didn't want to. So again, that's what Bruce Trampler says. Let me just read the quote here from him. He says, a lot of these guys are just spoiled. Hold on a second, blah, blah, blah. He talks about the lack of exposure, the lack of names. Okay, he says, look at the world rankings today and vomit, and then be thankful that Turkey's overpaying to keep some fights on TV, while the Saudis and the Zone are losing billions. Yet the fighters are all feel that boxing owes them fortunes. People got tired of the self-entitlement scene from the Charlos and Bronner and Danny Garcia and that era of overpaid and overrated guys. Fans wanted entertainment and have found it in Jake Paul and WWE, and only vaguely remember Bud, who had fought like twice in 4 years. So that right there is a big problem, guys. The inactivity and the overinflated sense of worth some of these guys have about themselves.
Yeah. I want to just get to some comments here from people in the chat. Someone are saying Floyd was a genius at marketing. What are your thoughts on that? I mean, I'll just quickly say that he was good at selling his brand, which was basically, I'm undefeated, nobody can defeat me. Let's see, I want to see you try. You know, that was pretty much it. But I think, and obviously he knew that he needed that aura of invincibility. So he fought in a way that was very cautious, because he knew that if he lost that, it was going to be a big setback.
Yeah.
He even said he had nightmares of him waking up, a nightmare of him losing. And he knew his whole fucking brand was based off of that. I'm undefeated, nobody can beat me. If he would have had one loss, it would have been over. Almost, you know what I mean? Because he was boring as fuck. In the welterweight division, because people are going to come, he was exciting at 135.
Yeah, they always bring up the Corrales fight, which, by the way, I mean, James Prince even admitted that they wagering Corrales. But you mentioned there was an article, the whole thing about Floyd was a marketing genius. I mean, that's very speculative right there. People just look at him and they look at his success and they assume that, it was all he's doing because he talked a lot. But in 2004, when he was in dire straits in 2004. He only had one fight that was against DeMarcus Chops Up Corley. And I remember I have the article here somewhere, Ring Magazine, where it was about what are we going to do with Mayweather? That was the gist of the article, because he was trying desperately to. People forget, in 2001 he was calling out Oscar De La Hoya, even though in 2001 Mayweather was at 130 and De La Hoya was already about to go to 154. But because he was desperate to become a star, I mean, to his credit, he was willing to take that risk. But the other thing he did was in 2004 he had hired a PR company to push him. And not for nothing, but if you look at a lot of Mayweather's fights post 2007, I want to say, he's got that lady, what's her name? Swan. She's the PR. She's the one that every time there's a fight, she starts screaming, stop, which, by the way, women out there, you need to understand, if there's a fight, yelling stop usually only irritates guys more into wanting to fight. With that fucking screeching voice, stop, just shut up and get out of the way. Or call a cop if you really feel threatened. But she was the one that she's the PR person for Mayweather, and people say she's a bulldog in terms of how she handles the PR, the press releases and the appearances and all that. So, I mean, he didn't do it by himself. He may have played a part in that, of course. Maybe we got if he did that, he deserves credit for that, of course. But to say that he did it by himself and he was like a one-man marketing, that's all not what happened. But
finish your point there, and then we're gonna get to another point. Our question.
Yeah, the second point is a lot of people say that, it's because people paid to watch him lose. And Buccio, you and I can attest to this, that we invite a bunch of people, usually casuals, to watch the Mayweather fights during his prime. They didn't show up saying, I want to see Mayweather lose.
No.
They just showed up because they'd heard a lot about this guy who was a boxing wizard.
Who's the best?
So in that sense, that's how
if not one of the best, if not the best in the sport.
Right. So I don't understand where this whole notion comes from, that, well, if you become a hated guy, people are going to pay to watch you lose. That didn't work with Broner, even though he did have a certain degree of longevity. Who else was, Lopez is being very dislikable. Same thing with, and he hasn't even scratched the surface of becoming a mainstream star. Yeah, so again, that's another misconception right there that people bring to the table.
So yeah, some people, like for example here in the chat, Joker's Wild says Lopez, Shakur, Boots never had great performance like Barrera, Morales, and Pacquiao. Lopez had that Lomachenko win, but you're right. I mean, if he wasn't a great performance, I mean, he also win. It wasn't memorable, I would say. I'm not gonna go and watch that shit. So I guess you're kind of right in that point. What about Lopez against
Taylor?
Josh Taylor?
Yeah, I mean that. But again, see, that's what I'm saying is every time he gets himself a good win, he just stagnates. Look at the Lomachenko thing. Again, his own doing. He wanted more money. He wasn't happy with Top Rank. He took that deal with what was it called again? What was it called? The company that never went anywhere later on with boxing. Anyway, with that company, and that's what the Kambosos fight lingered for a year. Finally, in November, he fights Kambosos and he loses. So he wasted a whole year only to cap it off by losing his lightweight title. Same thing with Josh Taylor. He beats Taylor, and then what happens? That was in June 2023, I want to say. What did he do for the next 6 months? Nothing. So again, that's what we're talking about here: activity, momentum, and the opposition that you're fighting. All those three things usually help. Am I saying that that's it? That's the panacea to become a star? No. But what we're saying is consistently, you've seen it throughout the decades with the guys who become stars. Usually they're active. They fight the guys we want to see them fight, and they do so in a relatively entertaining manner.
Shakur, has he had a big fight, great performance? His biggest win, I would say, it's Cepeda, but some people say, he didn't run. He didn't run. I mean, okay, so he was finally boxing. Is that what you're saying? And he was pretty much laying on the ropes the whole fucking time. At some point later on, he was teeing off on Cepeda. Cepeda was tired in the middle of the ring, but for the most part, the fight took place on the ropes and nothing much was happening. So was it a great performance? Not really. Boots Ennis, great performance. Stanionis, but then again, a lot of people are saying Stanionis was much smaller. He was smaller. I mean, Boots Ennis is moving up in weight now, so it's a good win. It's not a great performance. So no, he has yet to show us a great performance. Then we also have somebody else here. I Am Green says, would it be fair to say that old school promoters were better than the ones we have today?
Well, I mean, it's. I would have to really compare and contrast. I mean, again, you can't just look at the 80s, for example, and compare it to today and say, oh, well, yeah, the 80s, the promoters were better. Maybe they were, but again, it was a different time too. Boxing was still seen on network TV back in the 80s. And that's the other thing that they talk about in the article there with Bruce Trampler about there's no who else is broadcasting boxing right now? ESPN is apparently they're going to in certain events or certain instances. Top Rank just inked a deal with Stars, right? I forget when they said when that's going to start. So far right now, all we have is the Zone and Amazon, and most of those Amazon PPC cards are behind a paywall. So that's all we've got. And it sort of explains why after Canelo-Crawford, we've been in this vacuum because there's no, I mean, imagine if there were three major networks, like at least in 2023, we still had the Zone, ESPN, and the PBC with Showtime. Showtime, PBC, they did their thing. They ruined another network. Top Rank, they just sort of faltered. And again, well, actually, you know what? That brings us to the question of I Am Green. Are today's promoters worse than the ones of the past? I really am curious to know what's going on with Top Rank and why it's been stagnating. Because again, you had guys that company was consistently churning out stars to the point where these stars managed, because people often say that, De La Hoya and Mayweather left Top Rank. Yeah, they left them because they could, because that's how big Top Rank got them. They fattened them up into superstars. No one else very few other promoters have been able to do that. PBC hasn't been able to do that with Tank Davis. So, yeah.
Could we say that maybe boxers now have too much power, too much pull?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And you got too many boxing fans out there, or so-called boxing fans, who are overly sympathetic to the cause of these fighters. Don't criticize the fighters. They're modern day gladiators. They bleed for us. No, man. They're in this. They need us as much as we need them. Without them, there wouldn't be any boxing, but without us, they wouldn't be getting paid. They tend to forget that. They're you read most tweets out there from all these boxers, very dismissive tones about the fans. Hey, fuck faces. Without us, you wouldn't be nothing. Nothing. And yeah, with you, I respect the fact that these guys take the risk to become professional fighters, but there's a give and take here. And a lot of these guys, just look at with Tank Davis. Why are you fighting? Why did you choose to fight Jake Paul and not Lamont Roach? I don't want to give too much away. I'm just thinking about me. Okay, so you're thinking about you. He would have gotten, like I said in the video that I made about that fight, he would have made a lot of money for fighting Shakur Stevenson too, and it would have been a fight for legacy. You know what I mean? So again, it's just emblematic of the way these guys think, Bucho. It's me. No one's going to take care of me after I die. Well, we are taking care of you now. We are taking care of you now by, if you fight the best, we're going to pay to watch you fight the best.
Right. So it's not the promoter's fault, right? I mean, what can a promoter do with Shakur Stevenson or Tank, like you said, when he makes up, he wants to fight somebody like Jake Paul? What do you do with Haney to make him more exciting? What can you do? The promoter, he can. Well, that's so much he can fucking do.
That's what I was getting to with the question that I am Green asked about. Where today's promoters, are they worse than or less competent than the promoters from the past? Again, that's why I use Top Rank, because Top Rank, they were churning out stars left and right. Well, maybe I'm exaggerating, but I mean consistently they were the biggest promotional entity out there, other than Don King. Now you look at them, for the past 6 months they haven't had a network, or at least almost 6 months. And they don't have stars either. What's going on? They got Emiliano Vargas. That's a guy. But so then we've talked about it on the show before. Is it Todd DeBoeuf's fault? What is he? Is he Bob Arum's stepson or son-in-law? I always forget. Stepson. Okay, yeah.
No, stepson. Son-in-law. No, he's son-in-law.
Stepdaughter, you said? No, but listen, this dude, ever since he started taking charge, more or less, and Bob Arum started giving, stepping back a little bit, more and more. Look at the guys that they were trying to promote, man. Like, they try to get their hands on Devin Haney, Shakur Stevenson. These guys are boring. Even when as they were coming up, you could tell that they weren't going to be entertaining. Why would, like you said, they were obsessed with finding the next Mayweather, the next American, or like Sobers, not Sobers. Rapid used to say the next shirtless Afro-Anglo guy. Like Eddie Hearn is in love with those type of guys. So they think they want to follow that model because they think, oh well, it's been a proven success. It's an anomaly. These people need to get that through their heads. So. I do believe that if you compare Todd DeBoeuf with Bob Arum, it seems like there's something lacking. It seems like there's something big lacking.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's continue with. Okay, so do you have the criteria? More points? How do we call them? Characteristics.
Well, let's just go through them again. Then I didn't even write them down, Bucho. These are all off the top of my head. That's how smart I am. That's how I'm doing it a cappella here. No, but what? Yeah, okay. So we said that you have to have a compelling style. And I use the word compelling, Bucha, because entertaining, that can be a little bit more or less subjective. Compelling means just attractive. There's something that attracts the eye, both of the hardcore fans and the casual fan. So I say a compelling style, you need to fight the best, and you need to fight often, and you need to have competent people behind you, pushing you into the mainstream. Teofimo Lopez, again, we got to go back to Teofimo Lopez. Rewind to 2018 or 2019, a couple of months before the pandemic, which really took effect in March 2020. 2019, he beats Teofimo Lopez beats Richard Comey. He'd been around the block. Comey, he was a big puncher, dangerous guy. Lopez takes him out within 2 rounds. Now he's got the Lomachenko fight. Now there's hype. I remember that was the biggest fight of 2020. Joshua fought in 2020. Canelo fought in 2020, but the fight that Fury versus Wilder, the rematch, but that took place right before the pandemic took effect. So in terms of post-pandemic in 2020, Lopez versus Lomachenko, from what I recall, was the most hyped fight in boxing. I remember there was a lot of hype for that one because, like I said, compelling styles. Lomachenko, the guy who a lot of people had number 1 pound for pound, he's a wizard, he's a marvel. Teofimo Lopez, could he be the next Marvel? We know he hits hard. He's got a flashy style. He's very talkative. He's got a father who's often, looks like he's on something, always talking, always creating a drama. It just created for a compelling fight. And then what happens? Teofimo Lopez pulls off the unexpected. He beats Lomachenko. People are saying rematch. It deserved a rematch, that fight. And what happens? Lopez starts switching and flip-flopping. Rematch. No rematch. They talk bad about me. What the fuck is that? They talk bad about me. They talk bad about me. And then he didn't have any examples about how they talk bad about him. Then he said, yeah, maybe we'll fight him. Then he was, yeah, we're going to fight him. Then he was like, no, I want to fight Josh Taylor. And then the problems he had with Top Rank, and he just killed the momentum. He stifled his own momentum.
Well, and then
that's
he
a
got
cautionary tale.
Terrible performances at 140 as well, right? That didn't help. But he lost the momentum. He lost the momentum.
What are you showing here? I can see. Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah. So that's one, right? That's one guy. And we're going to get to who could be the next star. We're going to get to that. I think you have the list there, Bucho. But okay, here's another cautionary tale. Ryan Garcia. Even with the positive test, which, he submitted a hair follicle test, and it turns out that there was some contamination. There was contamination involved with the sample. He could have gone with that. He could have stuck to that and said, he was doing well for a while there in terms of saying, yeah, I beat Devin Haney. You all saw it. Don't pay attention to what it says on paper. He returns against Romero, and he says he broke his hand or whatever. I don't know if that's true. I don't even know if he would have gotten surgery or something, then maybe we could accept it. But I think he just said, I hurt my hand. So I was like, hey, who doesn't hurt their hands, right? He also has another problem, like Lopez. Not only that he's hard and cold as a fighter, but that he's a hard-headed guy. He's been consistently getting into a De La Hoya. Case in point, when Ryan Garcia wanted that Tank Davis fight. And Tank Davis says, well, I'll only fight you if you do a rehydration clause and we do a catch weight. De La Hoya said, and other people probably within the organization, don't do it. It's not, this is how you're playing to his advantages. You're giving everything he wants. Ryan Garcia was so confident. No, I can pull it off, man. And they ended up fighting, and you saw what happened. So he revives his career. Oh, and even then afterwards, when his comeback fight against Duarte, he's getting into it with Golden Boy, with the De La Hoya and Hopkins. And even before that, Steve Kim used to say that the guy was already asking for getting into it with De La Hoya. Remember, there was one fight where he's like, well, I want in my contract that if that fight gets canceled, I still get paid my full fee. So what the fuck is that? You're making outrageous demands. It's a form of disrespect. And then now, though, it's like, well, now he's claiming that Romero doesn't want to rematch him, which it's possible, right? I mean, Romero seems to be he doesn't make his own decisions. So PBC makes them for him. And they seem to be wanting to push him onto Pacquiao or somebody else, and not that Ryan Garcia. Because that way they can stick with having one up Ryan Garcia, where if he loses a lot of that appeal. Romero does. So Ryan Garcia really is one of those cautionary tales, because he had it all: the looks, the style, the flash. He already had a pre-built-in fan base from Instagram and tweet TikTok or whatever, and he just flushing it down the drain because he doesn't have that mentality to stay consistent.
Yeah, I mean, that has to do more with skills, I guess, or taking the sport seriously. And like that, you just make his voice. That sounds like somebody that's yelling and drinking nonstop.
Whiskey, I mean? A lot of whiskey too.
Whiskey and just fucking losing your voice. He's screaming and shit. So he's fucking nuts.
Wait, are you saying he just starts screaming randomly? He sounds like
I don't know. That's the somebody that's yelling and drinking and also smoking.
Well, don't talk bad too much about smoking, because we got sobers here. He's gonna give you the lip if you keep talking bad about smoking.
Yeah,
that's all I'm saying.
What else? What else?
Yeah. Well, I was gonna say I was just looking through some of these fighters. By the way, Xander Zayas, for example, he's got a couple more. He's got 20-something fights, about the same as Shakur Stevenson, and he's younger and has had a shorter career. So some of these dudes, like for example, Crawford and Ennis, I forget who was promoting him early on, but he's got about 30-something fights. So he's one of those current generation fighters who actually does have a good deal of fights under his belt. Same with Virgil Ortiz. Now, granted, most of those fights were against nobodies, but that's how the other thing is. You can also tell with some of these younger fans, they go, oh, look at this guy. He had 35, like they always say that about Canelo, for example. He had 50 fights, or how many he had? 40 fights before Mayweather. So you can't say that he was inexperienced. No, but again, you can tell that these people that don't know about boxing, pre-2010s, it was common to have at least 20-something fights before you even got to the championship level. I always use the Miguel Cotto or De La Hoya templates for that. De La Hoya was fighting guys that were good names, like John Molina and JC James Leija and Chicanito Hernandez. That was considered a very, very tough fight. But he had certain advantages over them at lightweight. And again, they moved him cautiously. So usually when you're a top flight prospect, you'll get about 15 fights. And then by the 16, 17, they start putting you in there with shop-worn ex-champs, right? Or veterans. Then they'll put you in there with a tough young veteran, the guy who can really stick there for more than 10 rounds without going down or flopping down. And that's how you do. And then eventually, for a title and blah, blah, and that's how it goes. But nowadays, some of these dudes, again, there's no TV dates. That's partially one of the problems. So by the time they're 15, they've already got 2 titles, but nobody knows who they are because they're only fighting twice a year. And like the other problem Steve Kim mentions is if you're only fighting twice a year, that's only 2 times that we get to see you in the year. So if you have one performance, that's 50% of your year gone right there because that's the only thing people are going to remember you for. So now you better end the year with a bang and, knock on wood, hopefully it doesn't happen to you that your second fight, you look bad because then that's how you end the year. People just remember you like, hey, what about, this dude? Oh yeah, he looked awful in his last fight.
In the chat, yeah. So what? Let me just read a comment here. Romero says, Ray says Romero was ordered to fight Giasov. The sun is setting on his career.
Right. Yeah, that's what I saw, right? That the guy is refusing to take step aside money. He wants that title.
He will take it. I mean, trust me, he will take it. He's just asking for more money, basically. That's why he's saying, I'm going to take this fight. Nah.
Mm-hmm. Another guy that already has a couple of good, he already has over 20 fights is Abdullah Mason. Oh, excuse me, he's got 19 fights. He's got 19 fights.
Wait, hold on. Before we go through we're going down the list here. Should we put their names in a success or failure category here? Like, will
if you want
Ryan Garcia become a success or a failure? In sense of, will he become?
Right now, he's a failure. Right now he's been a failure. As the face of boxing,
sorry. Not the face of boxing, because that's like one person, like an attraction. Will Ryan Garcia continue to be an attraction because he just fucking lost, right? In a terrible fucking fight. Is he still going to be an attraction?
I think he will. I think the Golden Boy, they're probably going to have something lined up for him. But again, that's dependent on what the fighter is willing to do. If they throw him a bunch of names at him, the Golden Boy that is, and Ryan Garcia keeps shooting them down, no, bro. Or if he asks for $5 million to fight a nobody or a less than stellar fighter, then yeah, that's him sabotaging his own career. But I think he can still sell, yes. But now he's in the red, yeah.
Green says Ryan can still sell. I think he can still sell. I think his next fight, I don't know what it would be, but against who, whatever. But I think it would sell. But I think long term, this guy's gonna be a failure. So I'm gonna put him in the failure category.
Casamigos says King Ryan.
Yeah.
Casamigos says King Ryan is a top attraction at the Bohemian Grove. Well, there you go. At least he's with the people that count.
I was there, bro.
They remember like what happened. Bro, they tied me down, bro. It's like, what the fuck, man? And then I was just kidding, bro. That's what he said afterwards, months afterwards.
It's a little joke. All right.
Real funny joke.
Yeah, talk about crazy. Okay, so who you were going to talk about? Abdullah Mason?
I think it's too early to say that he's a success.
No. What will he be? This is the thing. In the future, will he become a success?
Well, listen, he's got 19 fights already, so he's relatively active by today's standards. Apparently, when he's sparred a whole bunch of guys from his generation, he gets the best. He's gotten the best out of all of them. So it does seem as if he could potentially get himself there. That's for sure. But again, how many uber prospects have I seen throughout my years here in boxing? And a bad chin. Maybe they make a bad choice in marrying. You know what I mean? Bad marriage choice. That could always end careers. It's a little bit too early to tell with Abdullah Mason, but the ever-standing and always overly respected eye test indicates that he is pretty good. Pretty good indeed. I don't know about Floyd Schofield, though. That's the other guy that I was going to bring up. Golden Boy has Floyd Schofield. He looks sensational in his last fight against Tevin Farmer. What?
Schofield?
He looked good against Tevin Farmer, stopping him in one round.
He looked boring against this other guy. What's his name?
The Mexican dude. I forget his name. And then that same dude, Rocky Hernandez, outboxed him. So and Rocky Hernandez did it easier than Schofield did. So again, there's it's a bit of a give and take right there with Schofield. I don't know. Listen, one thing for sure is one thing we've seen that lately, some of these overly talkative fathers don't help their son's career too much, and there's no one worse right now than what's his name, Schofield Sr. People across the YTBC loathe them. Now, I don't particularly dislike the guy one way or the other because I don't know him. It's true that he can be obnoxious sometimes or caustic, especially with the voice. I mean, listen,
sorry,
somebody.
BDA,
Look,
I confused Schofield with Shaky Foster.
Jeez, Louise.
I was
man,
like, okay.
no, I understand what you're saying. Yeah, I understand why.
I'm
No, I used to
tired,
conflate.
yeah,
I used to
I was
confuse.
Yeah.
I always confuse Schofield with Raymond Ford because of the Floyd Ford. I mean, yeah, I confuse them too. They're in and about the
But I
same
don't know why
league.
Shaky. I'm fucking tired of Shaky Foster. No,
See, as soon as I brought up the father, though, you knew what I was talking about.
Yeah, well, I mean,
Exactly. Yeah, my son is the best. Listen. I sound like take away. Yeah, I sound as if you take 5 points from me, 5 IQ points, you're probably gonna say this guy's mentally retarded. That's how I sound. But one thing's for sure, though, if you have a high pitched voice and on top of that you have a noxious personality or character behind you, you probably shouldn't be going that much on all these, talk shows or web shows, because that's the other thing. But he hijacks his son's interviews. He'll be, his son is talking. Yeah, I think I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do that, and then you hear Schofield Sr. Don't forget to tell him about the, don't forget to turn the stove off or something like that. He's that's what he sounds like. He keeps on infringing on his son's moment, and not for nothing. But Teofimo Lopez, we saw what happened with him. Danny Garcia. It seems like these fathers take the spotlight, and then people go, you know what? Now I want this guy to lose just because of his father, and that can also hurt your appeal in a lot of ways.
Right.
By the way, Casamigo says they tried to kill my son. Remember that when they were saying that? What happened to that? The whole thing that he was poisoned in Saudi Arabia.
I don't remember that. What was the story?
Well, remember he was going to fight Shakur Stevenson on the Beterbiev Bivol rematch undercard, and then during fight week, 2 fights start. Okay, you gotta put the photo there, but. Yes, they showed all of a sudden a headline: Schofield out of the fight due to unknown illness or something. And then they showed a photo that I don't know. I think the Schofields released it of Floyd Schofield Jr. in a hospital bed with a bunch of devices attached to him. And he's got his eyes closed, so it made it look like he's fucking ill or he's in a coma or something. And then a couple of days later, he's okay again. And then they started casting aspersions on Shakur Stevenson's side, I believe. I think they were sort of intimating that they'd been poisoned, but then they had to walk it back because that can get you sued. But then we never heard anything about that again. And the joke of it all was that I caught the flu that week. I remember that's what I don't know if people didn't know this, but we didn't do a show at all that week. I caught the flu, and it was a bad flu, the type of flu where you got to stay in bed and you can't do anything. You're just immobilized. And then I saw him. I'm thinking, oh man, I feel your pain, brother. And then a couple of days later, the brother ends up lying. He's okay. He's like, it's like, what the fuck happened then? So yeah, there's a lot of weird stuff going on that side of the street. But you know what? For some reason, the fact that Schofield annoys a lot of people, and he annoys a lot of people that are themselves annoying, it's almost like, hey man, listen, the wheel turns for everybody. Now you have to endure somebody that annoys you, and therefore that makes me like Schofield Sr. a little bit.
So when it comes to Abdullah Mason, so far he looks like he can be a success because of the I don't know.
Schofield too. Yeah.
Schofield as well. Okay.
A little bit. Well, I mean, so Abdullah Mason has been a success as a prospect, but in order to as a superstar, no. He's far from that. You know who else I want to mention, and he's going to be fighting on the Pacheco undercard. That's a guy that I do think. I don't think he's gonna become a star because I don't think it's the type of guy that they want to push right now, even though they should be pushing him. Ernesto Tito Mercado. He's the guy that's been going after everybody. He's been going after Shakur Stevenson, Keyshawn Davis. Who else was he going after? There was another guy. Hitchens. He calls him Bitchens, I think. He always gives him nicknames. He's like 2016 Donald Trump. Remember, he would give nicknames to everybody, Trump, and Tito Mercado does the same thing. He was like, oh yeah, that punk Shakur Stevenson, if he wants it, he can go and get it. That bitch Hitchens, he wants it too. It's like he just calls them bitches, punks. I forget what. But this dude, on top of that, not only is he very talkative and he can crack. He's a bona fide puncher, and that's what we're talking about. That mix, that's like peanut butter and jelly. Because, like I said earlier, a lot of these dudes, they talk a big game, right? Ever since Conor McGregor came on the scene, and people in both boxing and MMA started thinking, hey, if I start trash talking a lot, I'm going to be a big star. But the thing is, you got to back it up. McGregor could back it up with knockouts. He was a striker. Then you have guys like Shakur Stevenson. And, people are going to say, why do you keep harping on Shakur Stevenson? Because I think he's a cautionary tale about trying to take somebody, turn him into a star, and the difficulties with dealing with a guy who has a very adversarial relationship with both his promoters and the fans, who are actually the ones who should be supporting him. But if you're driving them away, they're not going to support you. And then on top of that, he's boring. Because how many times did this guy talk a big game about, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that? Just in his last fight against William Cepeda, I'm going to put belt to ass, he said. I'm going to whoop you. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. He even had me believing. Remember Butch on fight week? I thought, hey, maybe if Shakur Stevenson digs to the body, maybe he can stall Cepeda late. And you and I forget who else set me straight. You straightened me out. You said, hey, man, come on. You really believe that? And then I started watching the fight. I said, fuck no. That was about the third or fourth time Shakur Stevenson's gone on the record, acting like a jackass in the press conference, saying, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, and then it's another decision. Mercado, on the other hand, he backs it up. So, yeah, that's the other thing that can hurt a fighter. When you've talked and talked, and you've under-delivered so many times, people are going to be repulsed by you. They're not going to want to touch your fight, especially if they're pay-per-view.
That's true. So, where I placed Tito Mercado on the success. What is he? Is he like? He's not Mexican, so he's Central American.
Yeah, what did they say he was? He's got some Cuban in him. I think that's what I remember. Cuban and something. Oh, no, what? Yeah, Nicaraguan, I think. And he's Nicaraguan because he's fought in Nicaraguan. I think I associated that with what some of his lineage. I think he's half Nicaraguan. I think.
Well, if he continues with the knockout streak and he continues to to call out people or boxers like Shakur. That was pretty funny when he was calling Shakur out and Shakur was in the crowd. If he continues to do that, he might start to get a lot of attention, more attention, and maybe become a success. Tito is mixed, says SGT. Yeah, he's Nicaraguan and something else. Dominican, maybe. I don't know.
There you go. I don't know.
Anyways,
I got a question.
Yes.
I got a question. Gervonta Davis is already 30, right? I think.
Yeah.
He's going to be fighting the face of boxing, Jake Paul. That's the only face of boxing we got left. What do you think is going to happen, and connect that to whether that can actually make Tank Davis into the star that he's always wanted to be?
I don't think this fight helps him, that Jake Paul fights at all, because it's not like he's going to knock out Jake Paul. And so I think the fight's just going to be boring, a lot of clinching, uneventful. How does that help Tank Davis? Right? Tank Davis is known for his knockouts. So he's not going to be showing these casual fans what he is in this fight. So you're not going to see that knockout artist. You're going to see the Tank Davis in a circus fight. So how is that going to help him?
Yeah.
And he still has that fucking asterisk fight with Lamont Roach. He still hasn't fought him again. So it's like he's going to be coming out of the Jake Paul fight with nothing. With some money.
What did you posted something earlier on the Discord that Lamont Roach was in an interview? He gave an interview recently, and he said he explained why he didn't pursue the Tank Davis rematch as well.
So what's his name again? Lamont Roach was in an interview with Coppinger, and this is what the tweet said. This is what Coppinger tweeted. Lamont Roach said he could have taken Gervonta Davis to arbitration after he ditched the August 16th rematch to face Jake Paul, but didn't because Al Heyman and the PBC took care of him and made things right. Again, Al Heyman, the PBC took care of him and made things right.
What does that mean?
Well, they took care of him. They gave him some fucking money.
These are cruise fight?
That's it. That's what it means.
Another another derailing in progress, man. I mean, that would for Roach that would have been a big career opportunity, the rematch.
You
But
know what? They
instead,
probably
they
also
entice him with something else.
yeah, well, they entice him with something else. Probably also they offered him, "Hey, we'll get you a Cruz fight. You know, he's a Mexican. The Mexicans are gonna show up. You fight Cruz, you're gonna get some money. We'll make it a pay per view. You're gonna be the main event." He's like, I like that. I'm gonna be the main event. You know.
Hey, but all things considered, that card ain't looking that bad, man. Roach Isaac Cruz has a potential for being a good fight. Then you've got who else is going to? Oh, Shaki Foster Fulton. They moved it to that card, I think. And then you got Lara versus Janibek. Actually, you know what? Now that I catch myself saying that, it's not that good.
I mean, Lara is boring as fuck. I don't know. Janibek is not. Listen, Janibek is not Golovkin. I don't know why people compare him to Golovkin.
I would pay good money though. I would pay good money to watch Janibek if he can pull it off. Do what Jared Hurd did to Lara in 2018. I would pay money to see it.
Beat him up.
Yeah, exactly. Shout out to Chief jumping in. Hey, okay,
it's not a pay per view. It's not a pay per view, by the way. The card is okay. The card is fine. It's not a pay per view. That's all.
I wanted to. I don't know if we can go back to the whole thing about how do you create a star. Chief, we were talking. I don't know if you've been hearing the show, but we're talking about what makes who's going to be the next big star and the age-old subject of what makes a star. And we were talking about how Bruce Trampler, who was the matchmaker for Top Rank, he recently was featured on a Steve Kim article, and he was talking about the myriad of factors that are preventing guys now from being stars. Limited TV dates. A lot of these fighters now are spoiled brats. They demand way too much money. They don't fight enough. And also, we've talked about how if you want to be a big star, you need to have big names lined up that the people want to see, that people want to see these enticing fights. And he mentioned something about how Sugar Ray Leonard had that it factor from the start. Howard Davis didn't have it, no matter how hard they would push him. What do you think about that? What makes a star, in your opinion, in your experience?
There's nothing to really nail it down to one factor. I mean, look at Joey Gamage. No one would call him a star except for if you sold him in the New England area, he could sell out, the arenas, for lack of a better term, wherever they had it at up there, and maybe it could only fit 15,000 seats, but he could sell all 15,000. You're never going to be a billionaire like that, but you can make money. So Steve Kim also said, you can have a highly sell a bunch of tickets and a bunch of pay-per-views and have a failing card and sell less than that and have a successful card. So I'm not an economist, but there's an over and under of stuff when it comes time to making profit. What makes a person a star is their attractability. Leonard had a gold medal, but he had that it factor. Like you said, he had charisma. I do believe if Howard Davis could have won a title, it would have improved his significant selling factor and star appeal significantly, but he just kept coming up short. There's also different levels of stars. He was like a low-level star. He got really good ratings every time he was on TV. He just never made it to the upper echelon, the elite selling level. So what makes one person once said the way you make a star is you start off in your neighborhood, and when you sell there, you go to the next level, you go to the next level, you go to the next level until you're a multi-billion-dollar star. Exaggeration. The way you make it is by developing a following. Now, the lack of TV dates, I've said it on this panel many times over, we start saying, well, what about this? What about this? How's this going to happen? How's that fight going to happen? I've been saying many times over, if you don't have the platforms to build the following, if you don't have the platforms to get it out there for the public to see, because ticket sales don't do it anymore. They're not going to get these fighters 8-figure paydays. So you need something more than that. So if it's not TV subsidization, and it's not investors, then it needs to be pay-per-view, unfortunately. It's the only other thing in my current level of business and very little knowledge of that, no. You have to have people paying to want to see it. So if the fighter doesn't have any charisma and they don't have a promoter like Don King to try and convince you they're better than they are, and if they don't have a platform to be shown off of, like I said, numerous factors of what makes a star, but it does start with the it factor. You have to have charisma. And if you don't have any, then who's going to want to pay to see you? If you don't have any, can you manufacture it? Don King was very good at manufacturing charisma by being the charismatic face for certain people. He would convince people you want to watch Terry Norris, because even though Terry Norris is a good fighter, he could talk a good game. he really didn't like it in front of the camera and being obnoxious or attractive, either way you want to look at it. Don King was better at that. So you have to have something to draw people to the event.
Well, you know what? That's the first of all, shout out to Nicholas R.G. Rose for his contribution by the super chat. Shout out to him. He says, "Open the phone lines, Buster." Well, we're about to there, Tiger. We're gonna open them up. I think Butch is gonna be able to take care of that. But yeah, we're gonna get to you to the phone line, see if people want to chime in on this subject. Chief, you made some excellent points right there. It's not any one thing, and that's the other thing that somebody else brought up in the comment section. I Am Green said, "Well, you know, are today's promoters less competent than the promoters of the past?" And I have to assume that. Yeah, maybe some of these newer guys, especially at Top Rank, I don't think they're not living up to the Top Rank brand. The other thing that I wanted to mention, you mentioned Terry Norris. We did that Terry Norris retrospective, the episode a couple of months back, and then we even talked about how come this guy was entertaining. He was scoring knockouts. He was a pound for pound level fighter, but he never caught on. And maybe that's because there was Chavez was around, De La Hoya was around by the 90s. Tyson was still there in the early 90s. A little bit of Sugar Ray Leonard, so maybe there just wasn't a place for him. Like you said, he didn't fit into that mold of those same guys did, even though he belonged at that upper echelon of the pound for pound rankings.
Well, and then there's that last factor that you're just alluding to, or I'm assuming you're alluding to there, is that sometimes you need something or someone to pass a torch to you. Leonard didn't have the passing of the torch, but his charisma when Ali lost to Berbick was like, okay, someone needs to take the mantle. You've already got the star power. Vacuum. You've got it. But
someone needs to fill the vacuum.
You know, De La Hoya and passed it technically to both Mayweather and Pacquiao, and that launched them into upper echelon. But Terry Norris did beat Sugar Ray Leonard. It just didn't, as someone pointed out in that show, it wasn't an effective torch passing as in, okay, I'm done and you're now going to take my place as a superstar. It got him to another level financially, but it didn't get him to 8-figure paydays.
That's a good point, man. That's a good point. And I keep forgetting, too, in terms of good points, I keep forgetting, we're going to open up the phone lines. We need your help. We need more thumbs up.
Yeah,
maybe a super chat or two thrown our way. Yeah, the thumbs up is what...
25.
I mean, come on, guys.
We're 81. 81 watching and 25 thumbs. So if you're listening, you probably didn't hit that like button. I'm talking to you.
Which is outrageous. How can you not hit the thumbs up button? 2 seconds it takes, and you help us. You help us out. You do. It's a good deed for the day. How about that?
You'll feel better. You'll feel better after.
Go ahead. Yeah. Well, I don't know about that, but hey, by the way, what was I gonna say? So Chief is making a good point about that, about some of these guys. But by the way, hey, hold on. That's what I was gonna mention. The Canelo. We mentioned how Leonard didn't really have the conventional passing of the torch. Neither did Canelo. Canelo didn't beat the former face of boxing. He did it all on his own. Then we go into Joshua. He sort of did beat the former guy in Klitschko, but by then Klitschko wasn't the number one guy. That was Fury, even though he was retired by then, by 2017 when that fight took place. So, I mean, yeah, there is a pattern, there is a bit of a mold, but sometimes guys can create their own mold, more or less.
Well, there was a unification situation. What put Canelo on that 8-figure payday situation was the Triple G fights. So the winner of that fight, whether it was going to be Triple G or Canelo, was going to be the one because they were both drawing a lot. And with HBO disintegrating, the zone was like, we're going to sign the winner of this to an excellent contract. Now, whether they made money off of that, it's irrelevant. They became big stars. DAZN put the money into them, and they were getting paid well. Both of them were. Canelo, obviously, more. So sometimes two guys can raise themselves up off their own merits, and the cream rises to the top. And the winner of that goes on to bigger things, and that was Canelo. So he made his own name, but he made it off of the guys around him. He was beating these guys, and the one that propelled him to that was the Triple G win.
Yeah, that's what I told Butch earlier. We were talking about, that's the other one of the factors about being a star is you need to have compelling fights lined up. Something that the average boxing fan can look for and say, hey, I want to see this dude against that guy. I'll pay for that. And right now you don't see a lot of that. Somebody in the chat asked, maybe is it also some of these guys getting overpaid? Is that, should we eliminate, who said that? Debater of Everything said, should we eliminate the 8-figure paydays? Not for nothing, man, but the same people who are complaining about the Ali Act, the elimination of the Ali Act, Dana White and Turkey Al-Sheikh, they're going to get rid of it. Poor fighters, not for nothing. But if you're the same guys who's complaining about that, but you've also been complaining about the state of boxing, not for nothing, but the current if you are complaining about the current state of boxing, that means you don't like it. And if you don't like it, I hate to break it to you, but one of the things you probably don't like is the fights not happening. And one of the big reasons why a lot of these fights don't happen is because these fighters tend to get overrate themselves. They ask for too much money. And like I was saying earlier, a lot of these guys have adversarial relationships with us, the boxing fans. Oh, stay in your lane. You ain't never boxed before. You don't know what you're talking about. I don't need to have boxed before at a championship level to know what I like as a consumer. These people forget that we're consumers. How many times have I've said it before, and I haven't been saying it in a while, but it's true. We're consumers. Give us a good product and we'll pay for it. We're under no obligation. Doesn't matter if you're the most skilled guy out there, if you're undefeated, blah, blah, blah. If I don't want to watch you fight, and most people don't want to see you watch you fight, too bad. It's a business. Bucko, I don't know what else to tell you. Either maybe, start, even some of these dudes that fight on TV, undercards, whatever, they make good livings at the championship level. You don't always have to be the star. You don't always have to be the guy making 10 mil per fight. That's nice and everything, but sometimes you can't move mountains. And if the business dictates that this is what you're worth, then that's what you're worth. Maybe try switching it up every once in a while. See if you can become a bigger star, if you can entertain the fans. But that's the thing. You got to entertain us first. So this whole thing of, well, I don't need to entertain you. This is a sweet science, and who's going to take care of me when I'm retired? First of all, we're not under any obligation to take care of you financially when you retire. You're right, exactly. But we are financially supporting you now by paying to watch you fight. If nobody knows who you are, guess what? You're not getting on the zone.
Exactly. Money will take care of you. It's money that's going to take care of you. Where's that money coming from? From the fans, right? So if you piss off the fans, nobody's going to take care of you when you retire. By the way, Nicholas, thank you for your super chat. He says, open the phone lines, Buster. Yes, we will open the phone lines soon. Just hit the like button. If you can help us out with super chat, so we can pay for the phone lines. That's going to be highly appreciated. Also, you were talking about...
spare a thumbs up.
Spare a thumbs up. Spare a thumbs, mister. Yeah, you mentioned the Ali Act. I'm going to be posting a video tomorrow about the Ali Act. Basically just talks about what it is and the rumors behind the Ali. I mean, the removal of the Ali Act, or they want to change it up a little bit. Dana White, TKO. They want to
spice it up.
They want to spice it up. So, yeah, that's going to be uploaded tomorrow.
Yeah, but that's what's funny though. It's like, oh, we don't want to change the Ali Act. Yeah, because boxing's been doing great for the last couple of years, right? I mean, it's again, is that the complaint that some people have, that the boxers are going to get taken advantage of? First of all, this is boxing. Even though they are spoiled, there are still a lot of fighters that get spoiled. I mean, that get taken advantage of. That's just a fact. But is this Ali Act really going to make things worse for them? I don't know, man. I mean, listen, if it gets a lot of these top names in line, I don't think I'd be opposed to that. I think I do agree with that. I think too many guys are being overpaid.
Help me out. Wasn't it the fact that they were trying to keep a conflict of interest of the manager acting as the manager and promoter at the same time? Because the manager's job is to get the most money he can for the fighter, because he takes a percentage. The promoter's job is to get the most money he can for the entire show, because that's how he makes money. So if he's doing both, he can't make as much money for the performance of the entire show if he's trying to get the most money for the fighter. It's literally a legal conflict of interest. Now, if you start to take over as the sole promoter, and then you have these promoters like Eddie Hearn and everything else like that, now technically filling manager roles, so long as they're not calling themselves the promoter and taking the business percentage as a promoter, because Turkey's the one that's really putting the money forth and putting it all together, then I don't know if there is a violation. But if Eddie Hearn is acting, if he's managing everything and making everything come together and getting the contract signed for the fighter, and then advocating for them from Turkey, and Turkey's really the promoter, but Eddie Hearn's taking a promotional cut, there's a conflict of interest there.
Yeah, I mean, listen, this is something that could be debatable here. I mean, it's something that is debatable here, whether this is going to make things bad or worse. But what I'm saying is, though, too, is a lot of these, I am curious about where do you draw the line? Because evidently people didn't draw the line with the existence of the PBC. People were fine with that. People were fine with Al Heyman being both a de facto promoter or an indirect promoter and the manager. I mean, look at what's going on with Lamont Roach now. He says, well, I wanted the Tank Davis fight. I could have taken it to arbitration. I was within my rights to do so. but the PBC told me not to, and they were going to take care of me. So wait a minute. So who? I mean, Al Heyman. Even though Al Heyman apparently he's not even in the picture anymore, and it's the Kubas or whatever who's in charge over there. Heyman is so he's technically his manager. Plus, his manager, he's supposed to look out for him, right? So the thing that would have worked out for him the most is, hey, get that Tank Davis fight. But Heyman eventually, he's also the promoter. He wants Tank Davis, another guy that he promotes and manages. He wants him to have the successful thing going on. And by the way, I don't know how much Tank is getting paid for the Jake Paul fight, but Heyman is going to get a cut of that. So is Heyman really looking out for the interest of as a manager for his fighter or for himself? How does that work?
Yeah, I mean that's been always the debate. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, okay, so if he's got both fighters, and that's another area that used to come up every once in a while. It used to be that some trainers were the managers and the trainer, and never the promoter. So there were times where Eddie Futch would be a pseudo manager, but mostly a trainer. And I don't remember if Eddie Futch did this, but there was a guy who is somewhere near the Ken Norton era where he represented both fighters. Well, I'll give you a perfect example. The same people that trained and managed Joe Frazier and Ken Norton wouldn't put those two guys together because they can't find a way to get the most possible unless it's a 50-50 split. I mean, the only thing they can do is say, look, you guys are going to fight for this pot, you can split it evenly. Okay, well, that's not the best interest for either fighter. Unless they agree to that, and it's up to them to agree to it. Not the manager, not the lawyers, the fighters have to agree to this. So if the manager comes in and says, you guys are going to get a 50-50 split, you're not working on the best interest of both fighters. So most of the time, managers can't put things in with the same fighter they both manage, because how are you going to do that objectively?
Exactly. See, that reminds me of the Marcus situation. That reminds me of the Roman Marcus situation with Top Rank, because Marcus claims that he wanted to fight Morales back in the 2000s. And he says that Marcus says he would beg Bob Arum and Top Rank at the time, hey, I want to fight this dude. And supposedly Bob Arum once told him, look, he doesn't want to fight you. What do you want me to do? Force him to fight you? And look, as a promoter, I can understand Bob Arum saying Morales is a bigger star. He's more entertaining. I don't want to match him up with Marcus and then risk losing. I mean, again, I don't even know if that's really what happened. That was Marcus' version. So I understand from the promotional standpoint, a promoter is a businessman. The manager is supposed to look out for the best interest of his fighter in terms of handling the day-to-day situations and all that, and for him to get the most money possible. So for Heyman to be the manager of both guys, but at the same time, he's a promoter, so he's looking out for what's best for his promotional entity. That's what the at least act supposed to be there to prevent. But I get that. What I'm saying is that if you didn't draw the line then, it is a bit hypocritical for you to be drawing the line now. Now, regardless of all that, is the Aliyah good or bad? I don't know. I'm going to watch and see what the Bucho's video says, but I suspect that this is all, again, there's competing factions going on right now. That the boxing scene is anti-Turki Al-Sheikh, and then you look at their interests and the motive behind why they might be so anti-Turki Al-Sheikh is because Turki Al-Sheikh and Dana White are starting out their own promotional boxing company, lower level fights, and they're going to be competing with Pro Box, which owns boxing scene. So you see, sometimes you look at the facts, but also while looking at the facts, you got to make sure, okay, is this really a fact or is this something contrived by the opposition because they got motives against the guy that they're attacking or the promotional outfit that they're attacking? So you really got to dig down and try to sort the facts. No, go ahead.
From the way you explained it, that doesn't sound like a conflict of interest. If Turki Al-Sheikh's putting the money up, especially since it doesn't seem like Turki cares about a profit. Let's pretend for a second that he does. If he's putting the money up and he's going to get everything at the end, and Dana White's the one putting everything together, like getting the guys together to sign the contracts and crossing the I's and dotting the T's. That, to me, though, that sounds more like a matchmaker. And that works for the promoter. The bottom line is someone's got to represent the fighter on who's getting the most money and the most money that they can for the fighter. If Dana White can't do that for two different fighters at the same time, if he represents them both, because someone's going to make more than the other. And at no point in time in capitalism does someone get to come down and dictate the fact you're going to get 50-50 because I represent you both. That's not capitalism. That you're not representing both guys to the best that they deserve. You're actually doing this so that you're going to get 50% of, or you're going to get a percentage of the total purse, no matter what. But the fighters aren't getting the most out of the whole thing, which is the manager's job. So at no point in time, and I know I repeat myself due to my ADHD, but at no point in time can you actually go out of your way to say that you have to take this percentage because I manage you both. You're not acting in someone's best interest, in one or the other. In this case, we're talking about Tank and Roach. There's no way Roach is going to be commanding the bigger purse. So if someone's representing, saying, hey, look, we can get you like 35, 40%. Okay, biggest money he's ever made, right? But if he's representing them both and saying, you guys are going to split it 50-50, that's nowhere near fair to Tank, because we know he gets more money than that fighting other people. So he's not acting in Tank's best interest if he does that. So you have to represent both of them equally. And if you manage them both, I don't think it's physically or even ethically possible to do that, because someone's going to get shortchanged.
Well, it's the fact that he's managing and promoting them. That's the dispute right there.
And that is a conflict of interest based off of the roles that a manager and the promoter have to do. It's not the manager's job for the promoter to make money. That's the promoter's job. The manager does not care if the event makes money. It can go on the whole as far as the manager's concerned, so long as his fighter's got a guaranteed purse and he takes a percentage off of said purse of what the fighter's making. If the event is a bust and it goes in the hole, the manager does not care and actually does not risk anything from it, because it's not his job. His job is to, and we beat the dead horse, his job is to represent the fighter. So if the pay-per-view tanks, the fighter still gets his pay, the manager takes a percentage of the fighter's pay. The promoter's the one that has to worry about if it's going to turn a profit, so he can make the most of everything. So one, he can promote another fight. Two, he can afford his house in the Hamptons. And three, keep this fighter close by because he makes a lot of money.
Like somebody else worded it perfectly. It's a bust out. They're, just like they bust out a private business, restaurant or whatever, with the Italian mob. It's the same thing here with these networks. They busted them out. The other thing is, we're going back to the whole concept of, listen, as boxing fans, we've been getting screwed over royally. This is a channel for the fans, from the fans, and we always defend the fans. We've been getting screwed. People always talk about the fighters, the poor fighters. Yeah, some of them have gotten screwed, but for the most part, believe me, they're doing okay, especially the top level fighters. Yeah, the smokers, the guys who go fight for $200 and get no health insurance, whatever. I feel for those guys, but that's also because, not for nothing, they're not that talented. So you get paid what you deserve to a certain extent. If you're non-talented but you're entertaining, then hey, that's what you bring to the table. Again, it's capitalism. And meanwhile, we've been getting screwed because we don't get to see entertaining fighters on TV. They're trying to push these boring fighters on our throat. So if we're getting screwed, and if the Ali Act or lack of Ali Act or whatever can actually help us as boxing fans, I need to hear a good argument about how this is going to be bad in the long. But going back to the, go ahead, Chief. You want to say something?
I just want to say one thing. I don't want to sound cold-hearted, but it's not our job as fans to worry about what the fighter makes when they're grown people making decisions of what they want to do for a living. No one's forcing them in the ring. No one's forcing them to make these decisions. They're choosing to go in. They're choosing to have these fights. They're choosing to put their life on the line. I respect them, and someone does need to look after them because it may be too brave for their own good. But the rest of that stuff is a choice that they made. I did not force anyone to get in the ring or anything. They're making these choices, and they have to be adults, and they have to be responsible. They have to ask questions. They have to use critical thinking. And if they don't learn how to do these things, and no one's taught them how to, then they're going to have a hard life. But that's not my fault. I can't accept responsibility for, it's nobody's responsibility for me to have joined the military, done everything I could, and made sure I got registered with the VA to get the benefits that I needed. If I didn't do that, it's nobody's responsibility but mine.
Yeah, we used to say that this about Rigondeaux back when he was active, and some people were complaining about, why is he a bigger star? But then you would look at him, bragging about, well, I'm going to fight the way I want to fight. Okay, well, you can fight whichever way you want to fight, but we're not obligated to watch you just because you're talented or you're undefeated. That's just the way it goes. Don't forget to hit the like, fellas. Hit the like. Really helps us out. Another guy that I think could potentially be a big name, we sort of missed him here, is Emiliano Vargas. They're really trying to push him over at Top Rank, and he seems to fit all the check boxes there. I mean, he ticks them all off. He's got the entertaining style. He's got a name. Look at what the wonders he did for Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. Even just recently, he was able to parlay that still. He's they say you can't draw blood from a stone, I would suggest you watch Julio Chavez Jr. at work. This guy has been living off that name for at least 15 years now. So Emiliano Vargas, he's got the name, he's got the style, he's entertaining, and people always talk about how he's photogenic. So maybe he can attract the ladies just like De La Hoya did. That right there is a quadruple threat so far. And he's with Top Rank, which, again, maybe they can redeem themselves in the next couple of years and show us that they're still the top outfit out there in terms of boxing promotional entities. We'll see what happens with Emiliano Vargas. They also got Xander Zayas. But him, we keep harping on the fact that you got to be interesting to watch in the ring. I don't think Zayas fits that bill. I really don't.
No, there's a lot of hype behind him that he was going to. They wanted to take their time building him up as a promotion, not his talent, but his drawing star. And congratulations, you've taken your time. Now it's crap or get off the pot, because it's time for him to start to become that bigger star. And again, with all the hype that was going around him of what he was supposed to be when he was younger, I don't hear of people going, "Hey, when can I see Zayas again? When can I see him again?" That's the guy I want to watch. No one's saying that.
And that's the thing. There's a vacuum. You mentioned the vacuum that there was for post Sugar Ray Leonard. There's a vacuum right now for a Puerto Rican fighter. But Zayas he's good, but he's gonna need a little something extra to be able to win over the Puerto Rican crowd. So the way he looked against his last fight, and the guy was dangerous. I mean, he's the guy that pulled off the upset against Conwell, but it wasn't necessarily scintillating stuff right there. We talked about Zayas and then Vargas. Listen, Crawford and Ennis, I don't know. I started off talking about him, but I think he does have a good chance because he's entertaining. I like watching him fight. I like the fact that when guys cover up, he'll try to hit anything. That's what you're supposed to do if you're a power puncher. So I think he's got good chances, even though he's already a little bit more advanced in age than some of these other prospects or whatever. I mean, I compare him to prospects because we're talking about a future star, but obviously he's not a prospect anymore. But I do think in terms of young undefeated fighters, he does have a good shot. So does Victor Ortiz, because now post Canelo, we keep talking about vacuums.
Virgil.
There's going to be Virgil Ortiz. Yeah, there's going to be that. Oh, did I say Victor Ortiz?
Yeah, I always say that same shit.
Oh, no. I can't believe I didn't catch myself. But yeah, Virgil Ortiz, that's another dude that, he's a big puncher. Yeah, we keep talking about, that's the other thing. We keep talking about, there's need to be some big names lined up for each other, these guys to fight. Fucking 154. Ennis, Ortiz, and even if they don't fight each other, there's a bunch of other interesting names out there for them to fight. That it's the potential is there to create that cataclysm of somebody becoming a big star, but they just got to make the right moves. And they got to push the pedal to the metal to do that. This whole thing of being inactive for fighting twice a year, man, try to push it 3 times a year.
Somebody says, Miso Danishian says, Emiliano sucks ass.
I mean, I think that's a bit of a overstatement right there. I mean, he could potentially prove to be overrated.
You're confusing him with the other Vargas, the one that fought in the undercard of Canelo-Crawford.
By the way, I still can't believe, I don't even know if we talked about this, I still can't believe that was the so-called co-main event.
Oh, yeah.
It should have been Mbili versus, what's his name, Martinez. Lester Martinez. And it did prove to be, yeah, we were right. That should have been. And then somebody said, I remember we were watching that fight on Discord, and I think somebody said that the reason why they didn't want to put Martinez and Mbili right before the main event is because they didn't want it to imagine that looks great. And then you got Canelo-Crawford, and it turns out to be a stinker. And yeah, it did turn out to be a little bit of a stinker. So, that's why I think they don't want to put the most entertaining fight right before the main event. But I mean, come on, it didn't help that the fight, the main event all started past midnight, and we had to endure these two guys. And it wasn't a bad fight per se, but it's just, it was a letdown compared to Billy Martinez.
True, but let's face the facts that we've stated on here before. You talk about Leonard Hagler, we may revere it now, but at the time, people were not overly saying, I want to watch that again. De La Hoya Trinidad, same thing. De La Hoya Mayweather, same thing. Evander Holyfield, Lennox Lewis, same thing. These are huge marketed fights that don't turn out to be, they're legendary based off the effect of boxing, but not by entertainment value. So and to be honest with you, the fact that some people think, well, Canelo's going to knock him out, the fact that Canelo is able to turn his fights with addition of right hand after right hand after right hand, like he did against Munguia. Now, Crawford's not Munguia, but he was a bigger guy, and he appeared to be a stronger guy, and those right hands added up. That's what some of us thought was going to happen to Crawford. The fact that it didn't,
Yeah,
and
but
it went
I'm
the
not
distance,
talking about that. But I'm not talking about the entertaining factor. But I'm talking about the fight preceding that. Fernando Vargas Jr. versus, what was the guy's name? Liam something. All those British guys are named. I'm talking about that being preceding the main event. That just bored the hell out of a
right.
lot of people. And he was already late here on the East Coast. It was very late.
Which made the main event look better than it really was. What point I'm taking too long to make is these biggest name fights usually don't turn out to be edge of your seat, nail biting,
Right.
and historically they haven't, and this one didn't either. It doesn't mean it wasn't completely boring. It just means it wasn't worth the hype of the money they put into it. And in Billy, the Billy fight definitely was, and all of us knew it was going to be a good fight. And they say in the concert world, the opener has to have worse speakers and a worse sound because you can't outshine the main event. And in the boxing world, it seems like they didn't want Billy to follow, just like you said, because they knew that fight was going to outshine the main event.
Well, that's the other thing, though, is you bring up the good point because we keep harping on the fact that these guys have to be interesting to watch, these so-called mainstream stars. And, you mentioned Sugar Leonard. He stopped Benitez. He was dropping a couple of people early on, too. The first Duran fight, even though he lost, it was entertaining. The Tommy Hearns fight was very dramatic, come from behind stoppage. So he was building himself up as a guy that not only is he skilled pound for pounder, he's fighting the best, but he's also doing it in entertaining fashion. I look back at some of the past stars we've had in the last 15 years or so. Anthony Joshua certainly looked exciting against Dylan White and Klitschko, but then he had that subpar performance against Carlos Takam, Joseph Parker, and then he wasn't always the most entertaining. Canelo, he had that fight against Austin Trout pre-Mayweather, but he had to be matched up carefully because he wasn't the most exciting guy either out there. That's what I kept saying before the Crawford fight. He's not a slugger. He's a come forward boxer. He doesn't really care if he stops you or not. But something about Canelo clicked with a lot of people. So again, it's that X factor. But for the most part, we're talking about how you have to be exciting to become a superstar. The last two phases of boxing we've had weren't necessarily the most entertaining. And I'm thinking too of who is right now. When you look at this list of potential successes, Abdullah Mason, he's been exciting so far. He's a puncher. Ennis is a puncher. Virgil Ortiz is a puncher. One guy that we haven't brought up yet is Jesse Bam Rodriguez. But other than Michael Carvajal, we haven't really seen some of these guys, lower level, low division guys, become superstars. I mean, again, people are going to say, well, what about Prince Nassim Hamed? 126. Featherweight seems to be the cutoff point. And even then, it's very difficult to go. And Nassim Hamed became a star by proxy from the UK. And then once he got enough hype, when he came to the United States, people were like, whoa, who's this dude? Right? He looked like a featherweight Muhammad Ali.
I'm sorry, but he also had he had that UK coming like the Beatles coming over here with a lot of hype already to where people wanted to buy into it. I'm not comparing him to the Beatles, but when you already have success from another country coming in, it's easier to make that transition. The other part of what I'm saying is that you also had Kevin Kelly, you had Wilfredo Gomez, you had Marco Antonio Barrera, Eric Morales, even though all these fights didn't happen. You had the potential for opponents to sell because the boxing public knew who they were, and then you had a selling factor crossing across the ocean to come see them. These lower weight guys, Sir Charteron was a great fighter, and he came over and he upset Chiquita Gonzalez. But he wasn't going to come back over here and keep selling because they don't even know how to say his name. I only just repeat what the name that I heard on TV. When I look and go back and research his name, I don't think it's pronounced so Charteron, but I can't read it. So how am I even going to get on board with it? Because that Thailand guy. No, there's a million of them. Which one are you talking about? So they have to have something to kind of bring over with them, and Thailand's not going to come over here and fly all the way halfway across the world to support their guy. So. In addition to a big following that they brought over with them, they had opponents here, and most of Sir Charteron's opponents and Ricardo Lopez went on the road a lot. He made a lot of money. He made a lot of title defenses. He went over to Japan and Thailand and those areas a lot to make his title defenses because it just didn't sell over here. Carvajal, like you said, was the only real one that really made an impact from America to rally around. It was because he was an Olympian. Is Ben Rodriguez going to equal that based off of his talent? It remains to be seen. But he didn't have that already following because he was a nationally televised Olympian medalist to come over here with. And that's kind of one of the reasons why it's going to be a hard time for him.
Hey, I have a
and then
name.
again,
Well, should we go through
Yes.
the list here? Keyshawn Davis.
I think he's too mentally volatile. I mean, he's got an entertaining style. He's a puncher, but mentally, like right now, you can put him in the red, man, because he was on the cusp, man. They were pushing him like after he beat Berenchik. It's like, oh my god, he beat Berenchik, can you believe it? And then he ends up self-imploding.
Jesus
So that's what I
Ramos.
was saying earlier about.
Yeah.
What was that?
Somebody said Mayo Dionysian is saying, he's asking, what about Jesus Ramos?
Jesus El Mono Ramos. He's the guy that lost to Lubin. Remember the
Yeah.
long,
But what
lanky,
I mean, is he a potential superstar?
Well, I remember when we did the 154 pound. Excuse me, 154. Remember we did that live episode where we were going through the 154 pound division and who's the best. Going to the top 10 names and what their upside was. A lot of people here were high on Ramos because he's the youngest out of all these top guys. He's younger than Fundora. He's younger by like 4 or 5 years, I think. So, and he's already got a decent dossier at 154. So a lot of people, it's not inconceivable. But I tell you what I don't like about Jesus Ramos is you look at him, he's tall, lanky, he's a big, relatively good puncher. And I used to think, man, this dude's going to be he has the potential to be a come forward, lanky pressure guy. But again, he's got that. I think he's suffering a little bit from the Gilberto Zurdo Ramirez and the Diego Pacheco thing. He's got good power. He's tall, lanky. He's got a good reach advantage over a lot of guys. But I think he wants to be like a cutie boxer. You know what I mean? He's good at cutting off the ring, but he's not an inside guy. He fights. He tries to be the long range fighter by pressuring a little bit like Golovkin. And against Lubin, that's why I thought Butcher. I thought he was going to beat Lubin because I said, well, Fundora could stop him. I think maybe this dude has a good chance too. He took it a little. He took the foot off the gas. Definitely in the last 3 rounds, he took his foot off the gas. Maybe he could have done a little something more damaging had he been willing to trade there, which I know is easier said than done against Lubin because Lubin has quick hands and he hits harder than most people give him credit for. But by virtue of that, the fact that I don't think Ramos has that killer instinct that you might need to transcend the boxing barrier.
Right. Fluke is saying that we should put Ryan in the middle. There is no middle. No middle.
There's no middle,
we
but
agree.
I guess
That's what we said earlier. We said he's in between, but I don't think he's going to make it. I don't think he's going to make it. I hope I'm wrong, but
no.
Yeah, his next fight, again, he's going to probably sell. He's going to get a lot of attention. But after that, I think it's going to go downhill again. I have another name.
Here's an interesting...
Yes. Well,
sure,
okay, you have a name? David Benavides.
No, you go first. David Benavides. Now, we've been saving that one. He's already, 29, 30?
20. He's going to be 28 or he's 28? Fuck, I don't know.
Well, look, like I said about Floyd Mayweather Jr. in that Tank versus Jake Paul video, just because you're 30 doesn't mean it's too late to be a star, because that's why I brought up Mayweather in that video. Mayweather was 30 by the time he fought De La Hoya. So he was a star of boxing, the face of boxing for 2007 to a good 8 years. A good 8 years on that. That's almost a decade of being the one of the faces of boxing. So it's not inconceivable that Tank Davis could still be the face of boxing. And so same thing with David Benavides. Even though he's nearing his 30s, it's possible that he could be one of the faces of boxing. But you know why I don't think he's going to be the face of boxing? Because I don't think, at 168 maybe. If he would have continued the course at 168, I think he could have been. But now 175, we'll have to see what happens against Yard.
So
he's not looking as impressive.
You're saying Virgil Ortiz and Jaron Ennis, for example, have a better chance of becoming superstars than David Benavides?
Yes, because they're more consistent. And at 154, again, remains to be seen, but they do seem to possess the same level of power and panache that they had at 147. Obviously, maybe a little diminished, but it's still there. Benavides, you can't say the same thing about him. It's been night and day from 168 to 175. And it's not like he didn't have a layup. I mean, again, Alexander Gvozdyk was old, coming off a layoff. He only had about 3 tune-ups against nobodies. That was a guy that, hey, you're younger than him. You're supposed to be this monster. You're more active than he is. You're faster. Go get him. Artur Beterbiev did that. Artur Beterbiev stalked Gvozdyk. This guy, Benavides, couldn't. David Morrell, okay, look, he's a big guy, young as well, big puncher. I like that fight. I was entertained by that one. But David Benavides, so far, what I'm trying to say is, you look at the context, yeah, maybe you can forgive him for not getting a stoppage, but if he wants to be the star of boxing, he has to look good against Yard. And dare I say, maybe this is setting the bar too high. He might need a knockout in this one, a stoppage. And I think he can get it. Yard is hittable, but he's also he also hits back.
So-
He's a big dude.
Yeah.
Yes.
Has Benavidez reached his peak?
I hesitate. Yeah, obviously, I'm just speculating, but I would say he's about to near it in terms of his potential to transcend the sport.
Paracua
He's not a
is-
big puncher, man.
He's not a big puncher. That's the thing. And at light heavyweight, he certainly doesn't look like the monster anymore.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying.
Paracua says Benavidez is one loss away from being irrelevant.
You think he's got the Devin Haney curse a little bit, that if he loses once, that's it, it's over?
It's possible. Listen, with Devin Haney, we still haven't. We still don't know if he's done because he fought a guy that was shot as well in Ramirez. What's his name
Ramirez,
again?
yeah.
Ramirez.
Uh-huh,
So-
yeah.
I mean, did Ramirez really test Haney? Did he really try and show us if that Haney was shot or not? No, not really. So we're gonna probably see if Haney's done or not when he fights Norman Jr.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You brought up Devin Haney. May I bring up the guy that he's going to be fighting next, Brian Norman Jr.? He's 24 years old, believe it or not. I know for some reason I thought he was like 27 or 28. No, he's 24. He already has some good performances under his belt, the Santillan fight and the Sasaki ones. I think those did good numbers on YouTube, I think, with the replay of him knocking those guys out. So he's got that going for him. We keep talking about the style and all that. He's a knockout puncher. And he also seems to be relatively quick. Young, quick, explosive, entertaining. Bucho, if he takes Devin Haney out, and I'm crossing my fingers, both my fingers, and both my fingers. I'm crossing the fingers of both my hands that he pulls it off against Devin Haney. You know how I feel about this fight? I think Haney is very difficult to beat because he doesn't care about boring the crowd. And that's a very difficult guy to beat because of the fact he can stall, make the fight boring or whatever he needs to do to win. So I'm worried for Brian Norman. But if he can pull it off, would you agree that this does wonders, that he would win the boxing fans' hearts by taking out
I
Haney?
think so. It depends how he beats him as well. If he knocks Devin
Sure.
Haney out, if he puts on a Ryan Garcia type of performance, definitely he's gonna get a lot of attention, a lot of love from boxing fans. People are already saying that Norman Jr. has an exciting style. So if he can show us that against Devin Haney, knocks him out, that's really gonna fucking propel him. Propel his
Yeah,
career.
absolutely, man. So,
Yeah.
but you see, he's got a name. He's got a name in front of him, a relatively known name. So if he can take him out, I mean, I think it would do wonders for his career. Absolutely.
For boxing, it would do wonders for boxing. Devin Haney has to go. This guy's boring as fuck. He's just annoying as hell. Shady camp, shady. Like his father is shady. All these people, they need to go. They need to go. They're not superstars. Nobody's lining up to see this fucking guy fight. He needs to go.
They're con artists. They're con artists. Remember what they're con artists. Remember the what's his name? Eddie Hearn said about them. He says after they lost to Ryan Garcia, we threw a bunch of names at them, and they were turning them down because they're not big enough names. But no, the problem is they're not big enough names. They want to get paid a certain amount, but they want to fight. Who do they want to fight then? Like, okay, we can't give you this guy, so you got to fight one of these lower level guys, and you got to take it. Excuse me, for the money. They wanted more money apparently. That's the thing. They want to get paid a high sum of money to fight a low level guy, and that's not how it works because the guy's not a star. They still think in their minds. That's why they took the Norman fight. I think they're very shrewd people. They looked at the Norman versus Quinn Randall fight and they said, you know what, we can pull it off. So that's why they're taking the risk because they got no more options. People always say, well, David Haney's always taking the risks. Look at who he fought. He fought Kambosos. I mean, Kambosos again. Everybody wanted to fight Kambosos. It was like the Carlos Baldomir of the lightweight division. Everybody wanted a piece of him. Lomachenko was about to take the fight before the whole brouhaha between Russia and the Ukraine took place. And then he fought Lomachenko. Oh, you see, he always fights the best. He fought an older Lomachenko. Once they finally saw him, especially after the Jermaine Ortiz fight, that's when they said, you know what? You know what can happen? We can take this guy out. Yeah, I know. We're almost done here. We're almost done. But the thing is that it was a shrewd, calculated move. And the Prograis fight, I've said this before, Bucho. It was only when you could see, what's his name? Bill Haney's afro in the front crowd. You see him, you can't miss him. He's there in the crowd watching Prograis struggle mightily against Zorrilla. And then all of a sudden, we want to fight Prograis. Yeah, because he looked like shit. So every move has been calculated to make you think that he's taking risks. But now finally they are. They're finally taking a risk. But again, there's a caveat because they do think that the dude is limited. But that, just like I'm telling you that Norman, if he beats Haney, he wins over the fans' hearts. This is a ploy by the Haneys. This is their last-ditch chance. Or maybe I shouldn't say the last one, but presently it's the only chance they have to win back what they lost against Ryan Garcia, and that is beating a guy that's red hot right now with the boxing fans, as a guy who's a knockout machine, blah, blah, blah. And if they beat him, if they beat him, he's going to get a whole bunch of credit from everybody. So there's a reward there. But again, I'm hoping that Brian Norman can switch it up and tighten up his game. Because I'm telling you, Devin Haney, that dip down below the waist, that's a big problem for anybody right there because he does it so fast. May I introduce another name here to the discussion, Bucho?
Yes.
Jai Opetaia from the Gold Coast Convention Center. What about him? Can he become a star?
No, at heavyweight. At heavyweight, I mean, the cruiserweight division has always been, nobody cares about the cruiserweight division. I mean, I shouldn't say nobody, but very few people. If he beats Zurdo, that's certainly going to help his career. But we all know that if he beats Zurdo, Jai Opetaia is going to be moving up. It's in the heavyweight division where Jai Opetaia can become a superstar. Now, can he succeed at heavyweight? I don't know. And you mentioned this before, because a lot of people compare him to Usyk. Usyk is a very extremely good fighter, as we all know, and he's defensively very sound. Jai Opetaia isn't, right? He's not Usyk. His defensive skills are not on par with Usyk, so that might not really help him at heavyweight. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
He gets hit a lot.
Yeah, that's
he likes it. He likes it, man.
That's the thing about Jai Opetaia is that I think what they're doing is they don't want to move to they don't want to move to heavyweight just quite yet before bringing some hardware with them up to the heavyweight division. And it's possible Jai Opetaia already is the cruiserweight champ. I don't even know. I think it's because of the Brady's fight, but I think they want to have that Gilberto Ramirez fight just to cap it off and say, hey, we beat, kind of like Usyk beat everybody at cruiserweight. That's the same thing Opetaia wants to be able to say, because it's not exactly cleaning up the division because there's only one interesting name in there, or one name that they're interested in. But I think that's what they're waiting for. And again, the guy's already almost 29 or 30. I think he's already about to be 30. So the clock's ticking. I think he's 31 even. Anyway, the clock's ticking. He has to make something happen now. And I do think that if he puts on the scintillating performances that he has been putting on a cruiserweight over in heavyweight, then he could potentially be a star. Now, whether he can actually pull it off, again, you got to have longevity to do that. And Jai Opetaia, I don't know. Like you said, he's not Usyk in terms of tight defense and technique. So we'll see if he can make it that far. And that's the other name, Bucho, at heavyweight. Somebody else brought it up in the comment section. Moses Aitauma.
Wait, hold on. So Jai Opetaia, we put him in the success or failure category?
I don't know, man. Leave him off for the moment. I mean, as a fighter, he's been a success. Okay, you're saying success to become a superstar?
In the future,
like with the potential?
in the future. Will he become a superstar? I don't think so.
It's even if Usyk retires, again, could Opetaia beat Fury, Joshua, Dubois?
Maybe Jai Opetaia moves up when all those guys are gone, when Usyk is gone, and maybe he ends up fighting Aitama for the heavyweight championship.
We'll see. I mean, again, okay, well, that's the Moses Aitauma. He's definitely already being groomed for success. He's being vetted as the next best thing. He just has to keep winning. Now, what I want to see is, I want to see somebody take him to the 6th round. I want to see him take somebody, I want to see somebody be able to take his best punch and come back with a punch of their own and see how Moses Aitauma reacts. I want to, because you saw what happened with that Canadian guy who fought Vianello last Saturday, right? He was looking good, when he was fighting low-level opposition. And you put him in against Vianello, he looked good for 3 rounds. And then from one round to the next, he flops, It's like, I've seen that in the industry too. These guys come in there, they're arrogant and all that, and they can last a little bit and then the wood goes down. because they're not used to the pressure and the long filming hours and all that. So the same thing with these boxers, man. Mo Saitama, we've seen it before with prospects. You look good for the first 3 rounds. What happens in the 5th, 6th round? What happens when the other guy's fighting bad? When he can take your punch, when he can roll with the shots and take the sting out of those shots and start tiring you out? What happens then? So, but just based on what we've seen so far, yeah, people love Aitama in England. The media loves him. They're already pushing him as the next best thing. Like we were saying earlier about a vacuum. Sometimes there has to be a vacuum, a spot available for you to take over. In England, that's where it is right now. The British guys, British people love their boxing. Josh is on the way out. Dubois, he's still relatively young, but if Aitama goes in there and starts upstaging him, the UK crowd is going to turn to him and say, that's the guy we want to see.
Yep. I'm going to put Aitama on the success side. Somebody said we need a neutral. More people are saying we need a neutral category here.
Well, we'll take into consideration for next time. But yeah, that's the list we've got so far. I don't know if we missed somebody. Brian Norman, again, people don't bring him up enough as a potential face of boxing. But if he beats, like I keep saying, if he beats Haney, and like Busho said, depending on how he beats him, could be a potential star right there. Jesse Ban Rodriguez, he's too small, man. These smaller guys, they don't usually transcend the sport. Raymond Murataya, he's looked bad in his last couple of fights, so for the moment, we're not going to talk about him. That's all we've got so far, or for today, rather.
Yeah. Lamont Roach. No, I'm kidding. Yeah, I'm checking the list here. Wait, Tank Davis.
Tank Davis. Well, I did mention him earlier. Put him also, it might look bad if we put him as a failure, and then he ends up doing something impressive against Jake Paul, and he wins over a whole new fan base.
He's not gonna do anything impressive against Jake Paul, man. It was gonna be a boring ass fight. So
you think it's gonna be like Nate Paul versus Mayweather, where it was just a whole bunch of clinching?
Yeah, can Davis knock this guy out? Oh,
I'd be surprised. I would be, because like I mentioned in that video. Yeah.
What the hell is this?
Yeah. What happened?
My computer's fucking up.
Well, we're about done here, so.
Yeah. All right, I'm gonna end this shit because it's crashing.
All right.
Hey guys, thank you for joining us.
Too many graphics.
Maybe. All right, guys, thank you for joining us. We'll see you next time. Check out the video that's going to be dropped tomorrow about the Ali Act, and we'll see you on Friday. All right, take care.
Take it easy. Thanks for watching. Woo.